Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Dazed and Confused podcast, where we explore the tangled history of cannabis in America. I'm your host, Christian Maynard, a doctoral candidate with Washington State University in the Department of Sociology. In our last episode, we looked at Bill Clinton, a president who personally admitted to trying cannabis.
When I was in England, I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it. And didn't inhale and never tried it again.
But whose administration still doubled down on prohibition during the era of medicalization.
And I was like, yeah, it's going to be called the Eras Tour. See you there.
But whose administration still doubled down on prohibition. Today we turn to his successor, George W. Bush.
We must stop the terror. I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
Who not only inherited Clinton's policies and approach, but also expanded it. This episode traces federal resistance to medical cannabis in the 2000s, and how despite that resistance, the movement continued to grow at the state level. And will carry the story forward into the early Obama years, where a dramatic shift occurred in the tone and direction of federal enforcement. George W. Bush's presidency opened with a clear continuation of federal hostility towards medical cannabis. Just months into his first term, federal agents and prosecutors targeted medical cannabis operations in states where they were legal, from dispensaries to cannabis clubs to cultivation sites. One of the most prominent cases was that of Ed Rosenthal, a California grower who cultivated cannabis for seriously ill patients. Despite acting under state law, Rosenthal was convicted on federal charges. His sentence? Just 1 day in jail and a $1,000 fine. Here I show a clip of Ed Rosenthal smoking cannabis.
Okay, here we go. You know what this is? A portable hazardous waste incinerator that I carry with me a lot. Okay, here we go. We're going to incinerate some hazardous waste so that the police don't have to deal with it. Yep, that's what pot will do to you. That's what it will do. So you better watch out and only smoke hash.
But the trial highlighted the federal government's unwillingness to accept state-level medical programs. The Bush administration also fought in courts to protect federal power. They appealed a ruling in court that barred federal agents from investigating or prosecuting doctors who recommended cannabis to their patients. And yet, Bush himself was no stranger to cannabis. In a private audio recording later released to the public, he admitted his past use, though he quickly added,
I wouldn't answer the marijuana question. You know why? Because I don't want some little kid doing what I tried. But you gotta understand, I wanna be president. I wanna lead. Do you want your little kid say, hey daddy, President Bush tried marijuana, I think I will?
Despite this acknowledgement, Bush firmly opposed legalization, and during his presidency, public opinion barely budged. About 1/3 of Americans supported legalization. But while the federal government resisted, the states kept moving. In Oregon, the medical program faced early criticism for its administrative mismanagement. The head of the Department of Human Services admitted the state had fallen short in implementing what voters had approved. By 2005, Montana voters passed their own medical initiative, though challenges and restrictions followed. That same year, Vermont's legislature legalized medical cannabis, despite Bush administration officials lobbying the governor to veto the bill. Rhode Island followed in 2005, overcoming a governor veto. In 2007, New Mexico's governor, Bill Richardson, became the first state executive to personally sign a medical cannabis bill into law. And in 2008, Michigan voters approved medical use by ballot, becoming the 13th state to do so. So even as the Bush administration escalated federal crackdowns, the state-level momentum was undeniable. The 2008 presidential election marked a turning point. Cannabis policy wasn't a central issue. The economy and foreign wars dominated the headlines, but the raids on state medical cannabis programs revealed a divide between the candidates. John McCain supported the continuation of federal raids, dismissing claims that terminally ill patients were being arrested.
As president, what are you going to do to stop an absolutely out of control and overfunded federal government from raiding state medical marijuana licensed facilities and clinics in 19 states who have decided that they support the right for a sick or dying or ill person to use medicine that will help them?
Nothing. I don't believe that medical marijuana is necessary for the relief of pain. I don't believe it's healthy, and I don't believe that it is, and I believe that it is a national issue and not a statewide issue.
Whereas Barack Obama promised to end them.
Good to see you,
Pleasure
sir.
to meet you.
What's your name?
Scott Turner.
Scott, thank you so much.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
In the states where medical marijuana is legal,
Yes.
and if New Hampshire, if it's legal here,
Yeah.
I would be somebody who would benefit greatly from
Right.
it. What would you be doing to stop the federal government from putting me in prison for using something that's legal here in New Hampshire?
I would not have the Justice Department prosecuting and raiding medical marijuana. It's not a good use of our resources.
That's terrific. Thank you.
Obama's personal history with cannabis was far more open than his predecessors. Obama openly acknowledged his past experience with cannabis. In his 1979 high school yearbook, Obama wrote, "Thanks, Tut, his grandmother, Gramps, his grandfather, Coom, slang for smoking marijuana, gang, and Ray, the individual who sold to Obama for all the good times." In his 1995 memoir, Dreams of My Father, Obama also remarked on various experiences with cannabis and cocaine. In 2004, then state senator of Illinois, Obama expressed support for cannabis decriminalization.
In terms of legalization of drugs, I think that the battle, the war on drugs has been an utter failure, and I think that we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws. But I'm not somebody who believes in legalization of marijuana. What I do believe is that we need to rethink how we are operating in the drug wars, and I think that currently we are not doing a good job.
In 2006, then Senator Obama remarked that
Obama.
Look, when I was a kid, I inhaled frequently. That was the point.
So what was that cameraman on?
in his memoir and public comments, Obama treated his cannabis use as honest, if imperfect, part of his youth. And once in office, Obama broke from the long-standing federal approach. His Justice Department reprioritized enforcement, instructing agents to cease raids on state-licensed medical operations and focus instead on illicit trafficking disguised as medical use. The move was framed as a matter of resource allocation, but also marked a ceasefire in the federal-state conflict over cannabis. Shown is a video of Obama discussing his YouTube town hall.
A live interview with YouTube has become an annual event for the president as he seeks to connect with a younger audience. That may help explain why each year the most popular viewer question by far has been on the legalization of marijuana, which the president said, once again, he opposes.
We don't spend as much time thinking about how do we shrink demand.
Oh, hello there. I didn't see you. I was just teaching Mr. Cookie how to fly. If you're enjoying the Dazed and Confused podcast, you can keep it going for just $4.20 a month on Patreon. It keeps the research flying, and it helps me afford his millet. Congress followed suit, lifting a long-standing restriction that had prevented Washington, D.C. from implementing its 1998 medical cannabis referendum. By 2010, the DC Council passed new legislation opening the door for doctors to recommend cannabis for serious illnesses. In DC, the first medical dispensary opened up in 2013. Meanwhile, states like New Mexico and Montana refined their programs, often with restrictive measures, but regardless, showing that the landscape of cannabis policy was shifting away from absolute prohibition. NPR reporter Jeff Brady labeled New Mexico as the most restrictive of the medical use states at the time. Politicians insisted that the strict design prevented a backdoor way to legalize pot. By mid-year, the excess demand by the 2,000-plus registered patients, coupled with restraints in licensure of the then 11 licensed growers, resulted in a cannabis shortage. One grower, Lee Goodman, stated,
"Sometimes patients don't have enough, so they use cannabis when the health condition is really severe, which is not good. It's like seniors cutting down on their meds because they can't afford it."
Opposition to cannabis legalization continued. A conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation, also responsible for Project 2025, published a report entitled Legalization Marijuana: Why Citizens Should Say No, which made several questionable claims. 1. Compared to alcohol, marijuana is far more likely to cause addiction. 2. Cannabis has no known general healthful properties, though it may have some palliative care. 3. In fact, compared to alcohol, marijuana is not safe. 4. Citizens also should not overlook what may be the greatest harms of marijuana legalization: increased addiction to and use of harder drugs, the gateway mythos. 5. There is no doubt that if marijuana were legalized, more people, including juveniles, would consume it. No direct evidence would be provided for this last claim. In fact, many of the research studies that have been published on legalization since then have found that adolescents are less likely to consume cannabis after legalization. The Bush years were defined by federal resistance to popular mobilization. The federal government clung to prohibition, but the states continued to experiment, legislate, and expand access to cannabis for medical purposes. By the end of Bush's second term, 13 states had passed medical laws, a remarkable shift considering that none had done so before 1996. Not just different rhetoric, but the first genuine federal retreat from direct conflict with state-level cannabis reform. In our next episode, we'll dive into the research of the era of medicalization. We'll look at studies, surveys, and medical debates that define this era and examine how scholars, doctors, and policymakers grappled with the question of cannabis as a medicine. I'm Christian Maynard, and this has been another episode of the Dazed and Confused podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and if you'd like to support my work, please check out my Patreon and consider subscribing for $4.20 a month. Another way to help out this type of research is by liking, commenting, and subscribing to whatever platform you get this podcast on. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.